Right now, Intellia Therapeutics, ticker NTLA, is trading at $14.64 per share, a catastrophic collapse of $10.96 or 42.79% on the day. This isn't a dip, this isn't a correction, this is a full-blown shareholder crisis, and it happened in the blink of an eye. The expectation for a company like Intellia has always been that its groundbreaking science would one day change the world and make its early investors incredibly wealthy. The reality, delivered today in a brutal press release, is that the single most dangerous word in the biotech dictionary has just been attached to its lead program: paused. Intellia has officially halted patient dosing and screening for its pivotal Phase 3 Magnitude and Magnitude 2 trials. The reason? A patient experienced a Grade 4 adverse event, specifically life-threatening liver toxicity, and has been hospitalized. This is the nightmare scenario for any clinical stage company. The entire investment thesis, the hope pinned on their lead drug nexiguran ziclumeran, or nex-z for ATTR amyloidosis, is now in question. The floor has given way, and what traders on their Robinhood app or Fidelity mobile app are witnessing is the brutal, binary risk of this industry made real. Let's be perfectly clear about what this means. The market is not overreacting. The market is repricing the company for a future that may not include its most valuable asset. The common belief around Intellia and the entire CRISPR space is that CRISPR technology is an inevitability. It's seen as the next frontier, a platform that will do for genetic diseases what antibiotics did for infections. We look at the success of NVIDIA stock in powering artificial intelligence and assume that a similar, unstoppable wave will lift all high-tech boats, whether they're in silicon or in biology. But this assumption is dangerously flawed. Unlike building a faster chip, editing the human genome in vivo, inside the body, carries profound, unpredictable biological risks. Today, that risk is no longer theoretical. A patient is in the hospital with severe liver damage, and Intellia's crown jewel program is on ice. This isn't just a setback, it's a potential checkmate for this specific drug. The company held a conference call this morning, and the tone was exactly what you'd expect: damage control. Management is consulting with experts, engaging with regulatory authorities like the FDA, and trying to figure out if there is any path forward. But the market isn't waiting for the analysis. The sell orders are overwhelming the buy orders because the trust has been broken. This isn't even the first warning sign. While today's Grade 4 event, the most severe classification, was the trigger for the protocol-defined pause, there were other signals. Another Grade 4 liver event was reported back in May of this year, which many analysts, in hindsight, were too quick to dismiss as a one-off. Go back even further to 2022, and there were other liver enzyme elevations in a Phase 1 study that forced the company to amend its protocol. This is now a pattern, and when you're developing a therapy that is meant to be a one-time cure by permanently editing a person's DNA, your safety bar isn't just high, it's practically infallible. You cannot have a cure that carries a significant risk of causing life-threatening liver failure. The problem is that over 450 patients have already been dosed with nex-z across these two Phase 3 trials. The immediate concern is for their safety, but the financial and strategic implications are staggering. What happens to them? What liabilities does the company now face? And critically, will the FDA ever feel comfortable allowing these trials to resume, even with a modified protocol? The expectation was that nex-z was on the fast track to approval. The reality is that it might be headed for the scrap heap. The volume we're seeing today is astronomical. We're witnessing capitulation. This is institutional selling. This is portfolio managers at major funds, perhaps those running complex Fidelity mutual funds or Fidelity ETFs, deciding that the risk-reward profile has been irrevocably broken. They are not waiting. They are getting out. This isn't like watching Tesla stock fluctuate on a tweet or Apple stock dip on a supply chain rumor. This is a fundamental impairment of the company's core value proposition. For the retail investor, the self-investing crowd doing their online investing through platforms like SoFi Invest or Interactive Brokers, this is a terrifying lesson. Many might have seen Intellia as a long-term holding in their individual brokerage account, a speculative but high-upside play. Today, that speculation met a concrete, disastrous reality. The contagion is also spreading. Shares of CRISPR Therapeutics, Intellia's closest competitor, are down 10% in sympathy. The market is asking a very simple, very scary question. Is this an Intellia problem, or is this a CRISPR in vivo platform problem? If the liver toxicity is related to the delivery mechanism or the editing process itself, then the shock waves could impact the entire sector for years. So, who is Intellia Therapeutics? For those just tuning into this disaster, this is a clinical-stage biotech company. Its entire focus is on developing therapies using the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing system. This technology is often described as molecular scissors, allowing scientists to find a specific strand of DNA, cut it, and edit it. It holds the promise of curing genetic diseases at their source. Intellia has two main approaches: in vivo, where the editing machinery is delivered directly into the patient's body, like the failed nex-z program, and ex vivo, where cells are taken out of a patient, edited in the lab, and then reinfused. The nex-z program for ATTR amyloidosis was their lead in vivo and by far the most advanced. It's partnered with Regeneron, which lends it credibility, but also means the potential spoils were already shared. The company also has a program for hereditary angioedema, NTLA 2002, which is also in vivo. Investors must now be looking at that program with extreme skepticism. If the liver toxicity is related to the platform, NTLA 2002 could be the next domino to fall. Before today, the narrative was of progress. The company ended 2024 with a reorganization to focus its resources, but it had a strong cash position, claiming a runway into the first half of 2027. That cash is now a lifeline. With its main engine of value creation suddenly shut down, Intellia reverts to being a preclinical and early-stage research company. Its entire valuation, which was based on the multi-billion-dollar potential of nex-z, has evaporated. The stock price you see today in the mid-teens is a reflection of a company with a lot of interesting science, but no clear path to commercialization. The analyst price targets that were sitting at $30, $40, or even higher are now meaningless. We're going to see a flood of downgrades over the next 48 hours. Analysts will be slashing their models, removing all projected revenue from nex-z, and reevaluating the company based on its cash balance and its much earlier stage pipeline. It's not pretty. This is what happens when the central pillar of an investment thesis is kicked out. Looking forward, what are the possible scenarios? The bull case, the absolute best-case scenario, is that this patient's liver toxicity is found to be completely unrelated to the drug. This is highly unlikely. The more realistic, good scenario is that Intellia can identify a specific, small subset of patients who are at risk, screen for them, and resume the trial with a much smaller modified population. This would still involve massive delays and added costs, and the FDA would be scrutinizing every single piece of data. The base case scenario, which the market seems to be pricing in, is that the nex-z program is finished. The risk of liver toxicity is deemed too high. The FDA puts the trial on a permanent clinical hold, and Intellia is forced to abandon its lead asset, which it has spent hundreds of millions of dollars developing. This would be a devastating blow, forcing the company to pivot entirely to its HAE program and its earlier ex vivo pipeline, setting it back by 5 to 7 years. The worst-case scenario is that this safety signal is a platform-wide issue, which would call into question the viability of their entire in vivo approach and, frankly, the company's very existence as a leader in the field. This is the ultimate confrontation of expectation versus reality. The expectation was that Intellia was on the verge of validating the entire in vivo CRISPR-Cas9 field. The reality is that biology is infinitely complex, and the human body is not a computer. You can't just edit code without consequences. This event proves that the risks in this space are not just financial, they are deeply biological. For anyone still holding this stock, the question is no longer how high can it go, but is there a floor? Right now, the company is trading near its cash value, which is often what happens when a biotech science fails. It becomes a shell of cash and patents. This is a stark reminder for anyone investing online to understand what they own. Owning a clinical-stage biotech is not like owning a blue-chip stock. It is a high-stakes gamble on a scientific outcome. Today, Intellia's investors lost that gamble. This is precisely why diversified platforms like Schwab Intelligent Portfolios or